Hey everyone, Peter here. Welcome back to my channel and thanks for tuning in. Now for this video, we'll be focusing on a few figures from my favorite movie of all time, and that's Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Now because this video will feature 15 different poses between the DX10 and DX13, I decided to make a simple showcase video rather than a full step-by-step or time-lapse tutorial for the sake of time and enjoyment of the poses themselves. And so, jumping right in, here we have the Terminator in that iconic slow-mo shot of him loading up his shotgun as he approaches John in the corridors of the Galleria for the first time. Now, unfortunately, the DX10 does not include the box of roses that he steps on, but you get the idea. Also, I got a lot of positive feedback along with several inquiries on Facebook about how to pull off this walking pose. And so, I just wanted to share that there is indeed a dynamic stand without the clamp that's hidden behind his left leg, and it runs upwards along his back to support his balance. And here we have the Terminator aiming his shotgun at his target, which appears to be John at first, until of course he tells John to get down. Now, no spoilers from me, but this pose might strike a nerve to those who've seen Terminator Dark Fate. Personally, I enjoyed that movie for what it was, but I also understand and respect why so many people didn't, and I'd be happy to discuss it in detail in the comments down below or on Facebook. Now, this John Connor figure is an absolute must-have if you're a Terminator collector. It's by CGL Toys, and it's known as Resistance Leader. Now, he doesn't come with a lot other than what you mostly see here, but he does include this awesome endoskeleton arm that's encased in a clear plastic tube. I suppose the downside of the endo arm is that it's a bit large and out of scale, so it doesn't exactly fit in John's backpack. But on the plus side, it can actually be removed from the encasing, and it's an awesome accessory nonetheless, which we'll see later in the video. And here we have the Terminator hunched over John as he shields him from the barrage of incoming gunfire. Now, I would have loved to pose the Robert Patrick T-1000 here, but as it turns out, I don't own that figure. The price on that guy is a bit too high for me, but maybe someday. In any case, I really loved how the Terminator just grabs John without any dialogue or hesitation and puts himself in harm's way in a moment's notice. I mean, it's exactly as we find out moments later. My mission is to protect you. And he fulfills this duty so spectacularly within seconds of their very first encounter. Also, I don't know if it's just me, but I always felt so bad for the character who got caught up in the shootout. I knew it was just fictional, even as a kid, but still, the poor guy was just trying to have a soda on his lunch break. Now here we have a pose from one of the funnier moments, and that's when John and the Terminator argue in the parking lot over the priorities of saving Sarah Connor. Now, I always found it hilarious that when the Terminator grabs hold and John says to let him go, the Terminator just straight up drops him flat on his ass. Of course, when John asks, "Why the hell did you do that?" we find out, "Because you told me to." And I always thought that was such a great way for John and us as viewers to learn that the Terminator ultimately has to follow his orders. And what's really great about this scene is that, despite being a kid who has just learned he has full command over literally a killing machine from the future, John instead uses his power of control to protect human life and instills early on that you just can't go around killing people. And I love how they continue to expand on this notion throughout the film. Now, in terms of the pose, once again, the secret here is that I hid the dynamic stand behind his left leg and wedged it between the figure's body and jacket. It's a subtle but effective way of keeping him firm in place without the need of a bulky clamp. Now moving along, we're skipping ahead after Sarah's rescue from the detention center, and here we have the Terminator and John both down in the arsenal bunker while on weapons detail. Now what I really enjoyed about this scene is that we learn through organic dialogue how John's childhood upbringing was very different than most kids. You know, he thought it was normal to be running guns and flying in helicopters, but was later put into regular school where he found out that the normal kids were just into video games. We're also reminded that the Terminator still hasn't grasped the concept of emotion and has no feelings nor fear about death, and says he just needs to remain functional until the mission is complete. And then, of course, he discovers that huge-ass minigun and gives us that hilarious smirk as John fittingly says, "That's definitely you." Alright, now this pose is a bit more obscure, and it's when Sarah has already attempted to assassinate Miles Dyson, but regains her humanity just before John and the Terminator arrive on scene. And so, the look I was going for here is when Miles looks up at these two strangers standing over him and anxiously asks, "Who are you people?" And John just casually pulls out a switchblade and says, "Show 'em." Now, similar to the box of roses, the DX10 also did not include the bloody endo arm. Additionally, the endo arm accessory that came with John is too big to fit, so I just went with a basic pose here. Also, the knife in John's hand is not included with his figure, but you can pretty much use any knife accessory for this pose. Alright, so the next few poses will be from the assault on Cyberdyne Systems, and here we have the Terminator casually loading his grenade launcher to fashion his own key after Miles lost access to his keycard from the silent alarm. And, of course, in good old Arnie fashion, he delivers that great one-liner, "Let me try mine." Did I mention that I absolutely love this film? In any case, now heads up, for any Cyberdyne poses, be sure to use his gloved hands and grenade ammo bandolier. You'll see in a few minutes that I actually forgot to attach his bandolier, so you can learn from my absent-mindedness. Alright, now here we have one of the most iconic scenes, not only from this movie, but in cinematic history. I mean, my goodness, everything about this scene proves why the film is so revered and considered a revolutionary masterpiece even after all these years. You know, they shot this on location, used real helicopters, blew up a real building, and that's just looking at the filmmaking aspect. But story-wise, I loved how, despite the fact that this killing machine could have easily obliterated everyone in his path, he chose not to, and not only because he swore to John, but he was also finally beginning to understand the value of human life. And of course, the icing on the cake for this scene was the incredible film score that played in the background as we learned there were 0 human casualties. Fittingly, the song is called Trust Me. Alright, now for the rest of this video, we'll be using the DX13, which is my holy grail and favorite figure in the entire collection. And so here we have the Terminator casually walking by as he effortlessly incapacitates the entire SWAT team by shooting at their legs. Now, I really gotta hand it to the actors who portrayed these SWAT officers. Their screams of agony were almost palpable. I mean, can you imagine what it would be like to unload all of your ammo and see this unstoppable thing still coming at you? Jesus. But still, their efforts were admirable, and again, I liked how he kept his promise by using non-lethal force. And, heads up, this is where I forgot to attach the grenade bandolier around his chest, so be sure to do that for the correct appearance. And here we have the Terminator in the very first pose that I ever put him in, and that's when he searches for the T-1000 at the steel foundry. Now, what I really liked about this scene was something kinda subtle, and it's actually when he tells John to go, now! Throughout the entire movie, the Terminator has been fairly calm when talking to anyone, especially John. But this was the first and only time he raised his voice and shouted at John in order to convey a sense of urgency. It was a subtle but effective cue of the Terminator applying the use of emotion as he was learning to become more human. Alright, and here we have the Terminator going up against the T-1000 as it morphed into liquid after literally eating a knuckle sandwich. I'll bet you haven't heard that phrase in a while. Now, fun fact, even though it was never mentioned in the movie, the novelization of T2 explained that the T-1000 is comprised of nanotechnology that scans the molecular structure of whatever it touches, allowing it to mimic and morph the way it does. So, even though Tony Stark made nanotech all cool with the Mark 50, the T-1000 was already on that hype train long beforehand. Now, another fun fact, for those who don't know, the DX13 includes this liquefied version of the T-1000, and despite owning this set for nearly 2 years, this was actually my first time posing them this way. I'd never taken the sculpted T-1000 out of the box, so I was curious to see if I could pull this pose off. But given that this non-articulating blob doesn't even move, I think I did okay. Alright, and here we have the Terminator damaged pretty badly after finally prevailing over the T-1000. Now, I love how after John helps him up and rudely comments how terrible he looks, he casually mutters with a huge sense of relief, "I need a vacation." It was just another subtle example of the Terminator exhibiting more humanistic expressions and behavior compared to how robotic and dorky he was earlier in the film. I mean, that deleted scene about being set to read-only was one of my favorite parts of the extended cut, and it's such a shame they removed it from the original film. Now, if you don't know what I'm referring to, then be sure to check out the extended special edition. There are integral extra scenes that explain why the Terminator was suddenly able to learn so fast, or how the T-1000 began to malfunction at the steel foundry. In any case, we only have a few more poses left, and similar to the previous one, this was also my first time posing them this way. I wasn't too happy with it at first because it doesn't really utilize the vertical shelf space of a Detolf, but it actually grew on me, and so this is how I've currently got my figures posed. And here we have John and the Terminator destroying all the evidence and technology that could potentially lead to any further development of Cyberdyne systems or the birth of Skynet. And as previously mentioned, this here is the endoskeleton arm that's included with the John Connor figure. Now heads up, the arm does not have any points of articulation, but it's still pretty cool to have. And since I don't really own any custom dioramas, I just bent the dynamic stand to form a makeshift railing for the Terminator to lean on. Side note, I would absolutely love for Hot Toys to remake the tactical version of Sarah Connor. I know there's a 1.0 version that's labeled as a T-1000 out there, but damn, how awesome would an actual Sarah Connor remake be? One can dream, right? Alright, now you might want to have some tissues nearby, because it's about to get real emotional up in here. Just kidding. But no, really, this part always gets me. When John repeatedly tells the Terminator, "I order you not to go," and then his voice begins to crack and tremble the more he says it. Ugh. That part always punches me right in the feels. And kudos to Edward Furlong for delivering such an emotional performance. I mean, we gotta remember that this was his first movie ever, and to give us such a powerful and memorable scene at such a young age speaks volumes to his natural acting abilities. And, of course, what perfectly complemented his performance was the Terminator's absolutely heartbreaking response. "I know now why you cry, but it's something I can never do." Oh man, with that one line, we saw the Terminator finally understood everything that John had been telling him up to that point. Why you can't kill people, why people cry, and he was able to comprehend and acknowledge John's overwhelming feelings of pain and loss with such a heartfelt goodbye. And so, for our final pose, we have John and the Terminator embracing one last time as they say farewell to each other. And cue the waterworks. Now, this right here is the epitome of great storytelling and character development, in my opinion. I mean, if you look at the character arc over the course of the first two films, we see that the Terminator went from a cold, emotionless, relentless, and downright terrifying killing machine to this empathetic, loving protector and father figure. I mean, it was such a relief to see the Terminator get demolished at the end of the first film, but it's so hard, even to this day, not to cry when we lose him by the end of the second film. And that's just a testament to James Cameron's incredible ability to translate his vision into film, along with the amazingly talented film crew that all came together to give us this masterpiece of a movie. And there you have it. 15 different poses for the DX10 and DX13 by Hot Toys, along with Resistance leader John Connor by CGL Toys. Now, I know this video didn't follow my usual tutorial format, but I really wanted to pay tribute to my favorite movie and figure set by focusing entirely on the commentary and poses. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, because I sure as hell had a lot of fun making it. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this. Also, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Kai over at Cool Collectibles for providing the community with his incredibly detailed comparison and review of the DX10 and 13. I found them both in great condition and well below retail price while traveling in Japan back in 2018, and I was so indecisive that I literally sat down on the floor of this hobby shop in Akihabara for like an hour reading Kai's written review as I contemplated whether or not to get them. Suffice it to say, his review absolutely sold me, and they ended up being my carry-on items back home. So Kai, if you're watching, thanks so much. Now heads up, I just received my 2-pack of Joel and Ellie from The Last of Us, which was one of my favorite video games of all time. Additionally, they come with a ton of accessories along with multiple head sculpts and outfits, so I might feature them in a showcase video similar to this format here. If you enjoyed these poses and you're on Instagram, feel free to follow me at posingwithpeter16. And lastly, if you're on Facebook and would like to say hi, then come join us over at 6th Scale Network, where we chat all things figures. As always, links are down below. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.